All right, guys, I got a war story today, and I'm going to start doing more war stories. This is not to make myself sound cool. I was not Rambo. I was not stacking bodies 10 high, 3 high, and then things start to fall, and it gets really messy, so you want to keep them no more than 3 high. No, I'm just kidding. But this is not to try to make me look out to be like some badass or anything. But, we had it easier than a lot of people, and we had it harder than a lot of people. So, it is what it is, and not all of being in combat is the flashy boom bang stuff, things blowing up and all that. A lot of it's downtime. A lot of it is lows and rest and time for reflection. Actually, I learned a lot of things in those moments of reflection and in those downtimes that I took away a lot of lessons. And that's why I want to talk about this stuff. That's why I want to tell some stories, in particular stories that I found helped me, that I took something from them, and I've applied it to my life, and it's made my life better in some way. And this is a story. It happens to have some of the flashy blow-ups, bombs and stuff, but not all stories will. This is a story about the first time that, someone I ever felt. I had the realization that someone tried to kill me. I was 19 years old at the time, and it was early on in our deployment. And this is the first time we got hit by an IED. And we were driving down. We were in Baghdad. Our main beat every day was up and down what's called Route Irish, which is basically just what we called that section of Highway 8 or MSR Tampa that runs through the city, north-south, right through the city, and bisects with Airport Road. And that was our kind of normal beat. And I think at the time, this is 2005 to 2006, so at the time it was probably the worst year for IEDs, or one of the worst, and that was our biggest threat. That and VB IEDs, which are car bombs. So as a gunner, for the most part I was a gunner, that was something I was on the lookout for, and something I was very aware of. And in this case, I was a dismount, so I was sitting in the vehicle, in the Humvee, and I wasn't on one of the guns. So we were driving, and the vehicles are pretty closely spaced, 15 meters apart, and we've got 3 Humvees on this patrol, and we're cruising down what we called Route Cherry, runs north-south through the neighborhood of Sadia. And Route Cherry, we got to this part where some buildings had been under construction, so they had mounds of dirt, and I think maybe even some stone or something like that, which is pretty standard when you're in a construction area. People are digging things out or preparing to fill things in. And so in one of the big mounds of dirt by the side of the road, someone had placed an IED, an improvised explosive device, basically a bomb, a made-up bomb. And this is, by this time in 2005, at OIF-3, the insurgency had started to really ramp up. And so most of the guys that we were coming across were not from Iraq, they were from elsewhere, other countries in the surrounding area, and they were professional soldiers. They were really good at what they do. They're very smart, and a lot of these IEDs were pretty sophisticated. They knew how to make bombs, and they got better and better as time went on. So in this case, one of these bombs was in this mound, and we were driving down the road, and definitely something I'll never forget is that sound. You watch movies and you think, you hear the sound of explosions, and these sounds are, it's hard to explain, but you just hear this stereotypical, right, big explosion, surrounds. Maybe you have a surround sound system, or you're in a movie theater and it's really intense and bassy and stuff. But when you hear a real explosion in real life, the thing that you don't really understand is that when you can feel the blast, it's a different experience because you can feel the sound. And when you're in a movie theater, you hear the sound. It touches every cell in your body and ripples through your body, and that is invasive. Obviously, a piece of shrapnel or something coming into your body is invasive, but when you can feel the intensity of this wave, it's very disruptive, it's very invasive, it invades everything that is in you. and it really takes you back. It's really shocking, and it's something you can't explain. And no, I got an email. I guess I should probably turn that off. So that's what happened. The IED went off, and we were very fortunate. I mean, it did some damage, scared the shit out of me. Kind of, but had it been buried a little less deep in the pile, would have potentially, we would have, I don't know, maybe a few guys wouldn't be with us today, because it was pretty close to the vehicle right in front of me. And the gunner in the vehicle, who I won't name, when the blast went off, our radios went out, which is another thing that you don't really think about. At least we didn't plan for in training. It's, you can't plan for everything, or we didn't think about that the blast would take the radios out. And when you're in a small 3-vehicle convoy in the middle of a real bad area, and you've just been attacked, and potentially a third of your patrol is incapacitated, you've got like maybe 6 or 7 guys that are ready to fight potentially, and it's a great time for an ambush. And that was an SOP that was used a lot. And so it can be scary when you can't communicate with anyone, and you can't call for help, and you don't know what the situation is. You're not sure if there's only 5 or 6 guys that are, that can fight. And if you count the drivers that need to drive each vehicle, and you've got 2 less guys, that are able to run around, and the gunners have got to stay in the truck. So, you're kind of, it's a scary moment to be in. But the gunner in the truck in front of us went down. I honestly thought he was I thought he was either dead or severely wounded, because the explosion was pretty intense for me to just for the impact it had on me, 10 or 15 meters behind, and he was outside of the vehicle. So I wasn't thinking it was a good thing that had happened. And I believe there were a few shots fired onto that vehicle that was in front of us. And again, that's pretty standard, So hearing all of that, pretty much I was assuming the worst case. That's what you have to do. You have to assume that everyone in that vehicle's dead, and that you have no radios, and that you're taking fire, and that this is a situation where you got to make some decisions real fast. And for me as a gunner, I realized in this truck that got hit, this gunner that went down was behind the 50 cal, and it was the only 50 cal machine gun on our patrol, and that's our biggest weapon. And if you are in a sticky situation, it's a weapon that you want up. So you want running. You want someone to be on that 50 cal, because let me tell you, if there's anything that'll provide suppressive fire pretty effectively, it's a caliber 50. It's a pretty powerful weapon. It's incredible. And so that instinct in me as a dismount, who's normally a gunner, was to get that 50 cal up. And so I got out of my truck and ran up to the back of the vehicle in front of us that had just been blown up by the IED, and jumped up on the back. The Humvees are kind of sloped on the back, so it was kind of convenient, except for there's a concertina wire, which is kind of like barbed wire on the back, and which can suck a little bit if you get caught up in that. But jumped on the back and ran on top of the Humvee and dropped into the gunner's hatch from the top of the Humvee. At the time, we weren't supposed to chamber around in the caliber 50 when we went on patrol, because the butterfly trigger doesn't have a safety, and it's a perfect position for the magazine pouches that you have to, when you're driving around, to accidentally engage that trigger, and you don't want to accidentally fire off a caliber 50 round. And so at the time, we weren't so chambered around in the 50 cal, and was ready for more incoming fire. And luckily, for whatever reason, it didn't happen. There was no big ambush or anything. So we're very fortunate again. So, things to be thankful for. But that's not the lesson here. The big lesson comes after the IED. So after this, I don't know if we got our radios back up, but a unit nearby, I think it was Bravo Company, an infantry company, on some Bradleys, obviously saw the explosion, heard it, and came to the area. And it was so amazing to see those guys. It was great to see those Bradleys come in and cordon off the area and kind of relieve us of that, as we were in a sticky situation for a minute. And when I jumped in the turret, below me, kind of where my feet are, is where the gunner who was in there before had fallen in. And luckily, our medic, a guy named Doc Badger, was sitting in the vehicle. So the gunner had fallen after the explosion right basically into the medic's lap, which was very convenient. And I wasn't sure how he was doing. He was kind of laying down, and Doc was working with him. And after about 10, 15 minutes, kind of checked down, and I saw that he was going to be okay. I think he couldn't really hear that well and was very shocked, but there wasn't like massive bleeding or anything. So that was good. But your adrenaline's really high, and that was incredible. I mean, your adrenaline high was just like, whew. And I'm standing in this gunner's turret, and the Bravo Company comes and relieves us. And kind of when Bravo Company comes, and I know that we're pretty safe, if someone tries to attack us, we've got a lot of help. So I felt pretty comfortable. And that was when I first experienced the effects of an adrenaline dump, and what happens when that adrenaline sort of goes away and you're left. It's when you have such an intense adrenaline rush, a really intense fight or flight experience, and that adrenaline goes away, it's your body just has this really interesting reaction. I started to shake uncontrollably. I couldn't stand up. My legs, literally, I couldn't feel my legs. They were just shaking so much, and I felt okay, but my body was just giving. It was just like, and I had to hold myself up like this in my gunner's turret to keep from falling, and I had to like lean and prop my leg up to kind of keep me up, and I was trying to play it cool, I'm sure a lot of other guys felt a similar type of thing, but I was trying to play it cool. And we had an interpreter named Callie, and this guy was like a former special forces guy from the Iraqi army. Incredible dude. He fought in the Iran-Iraq war. A lot of combat experience over the years, and he was our interpreter. And he had been in situations like this many times before, and he knew exactly what we were all starting to feel. And he just knew what to do. And this is the lesson that I learned from him. There were these ovens that are all over the place. They're almost like communal ovens every couple blocks. And they bake this fresh baked bread. I think they call it salmon or something like that, or salmon. And it's actually really good. Kind of reminded me of flatbread, sort of. And he went and got a big bag of this fresh baked flatbread, and he started running around, and he was handing it to everybody, and he was insisting, eat this, and I'm just thinking, what the hell, Callie, what the fuck are you talking about? And he said, here, eat this, and he insisted. And he had this look of concern. He knew that this was the first time that a lot of us, I think almost all of us, had seen any type of combat or any type of situation where they were, in real danger. And I think he knew exactly what was going through our minds and our bodies, and he was sensitive. He was concerned about that. He cared about us, and so he insisted that we started chewing this bread. I'm like, I don't know, Callie's crazy, but shit, I mean, this whole situation's crazy, so might as well eat some bread. Fuck it, right? So I started chewing on this bread and eating this bread, and all of a sudden, I could feel my legs again, and I didn't have to prop my body up to stand up. I could stand up on my own 2 feet, and I started to the nervousness and the shakiness went away, and I started to feel better. I was having some anxiety, like, shit, somebody just tried to kill me, that whole realization of that whole thing, and that kind of went away. And I felt pretty good considering the situation. And what I've come to realize now is that your body, when you chew and you create that saliva and you're actually chewing, your body understands that it doesn't make sense to be in a survival, fight, or flight mode if you're eating. Because if you're eating, that's something you do when you're safe. You're not going to be eating and running from a saber-toothed tiger. You're going to drop your bread or your granola bar and you're going to sprint as fast as you fucking can. So it's kind of this interesting mechanism that the body understands that when you're eating, you're safe. You're not in immediate danger. And so the fight or flight response and just kind of the whole your whole nervous system really responds to that in an incredibly powerful way. So I've applied this in my life, and this is how I apply this in my life. And what I use is gum a lot, because gum is more likely to be acceptable to be chewing in more situations than bread or some other type of food. But you can use food. Gum is convenient because it can just fit in your pocket. And if you're in a situation where, if I'm in a situation where I've got nerves, maybe public speaking, or you're going to get up and do something in front of, do a presentation, you're feeling nervous, maybe you're on a date, maybe you're in an interview, whatever it might be, when you have that anxiety and that nervousness, chewing gum or eating any type of food or chewing on any type of food is a really great antidote to that, and it's very highly effective. You start chewing gum and your body will calm down. You will calm down and regain some focus. It's pretty powerful. So that's my lesson learned. That's my war story. The guy who was in the vehicle ended up being mostly okay. The biggest damage to him was the guy. It scared the shit out of him, and no excuses here. But I won't name him. But he ended up when he went home on leave, not coming back, and that's not an honorable thing to do. Every single one of us went home on mid-tour leave, halfway through our leave for 10 days, and came back. And we could have stayed and saved our lives. By the time I went on my leave, one of our small group of 50-something guys was killed on patrol with us. And so it was very real. I understood that if I did decide to not go AWOL, that it meant that there was at least a reasonable chance that I might not come back. And I would have been in trouble, obviously, if I'd stayed, but I could have saved my life. And so I made that choice to get back on the airplane and go back to war for another 5 or 6 months. And I did it because, when you're in these situations with guys where you're in a life or death situation, and not just one or two, but many life or death situations, your family loves you, your friends back at home love you, right? And would do anything for you and all that. But the bottom line is, when you're in your moment of greatest need, who's there? Who's to your left and your right? And that means something. And you really understand, if you're going to get through this, you have to, you've got to take care of the guy next to you. And that's the only way that you're going to get out, is if everyone agrees, everyone's all in, and everyone agrees to take care of each other and not hesitate. And so, he was scared. Fear got the best of him, and when he had an opportunity, he abandoned us. And it is what it is. So the lesson learned there. Utilize some gum or chewing will really help you with anxiety, nervousness, calming you down when you're in a stressful situation. And it's a valuable lesson that I learned from my time overseas. Love all you guys. Like this video, share it, and I'll see you next time.